Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can get a free honeysuckle white turkey when you spend $100 or more in a single transaction through November 27th. Clip the offer in the Safeway app and make your holiday feast delicious.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
You listen to the news, but how much do you know about the people who bring it to you? You can see behind the scenes with a documentary that premieres this weekend. It features Colorado journalists, including me, as we gather our reporting and explain why we do it. It's called Truth Be Told, and if you're curious, you can see it at 10:30 this Sunday morning on 9 News. I'm Bazi Kanani. Coming up, Denver's among the airports seeing canceled flights starting today as part of the government shutdown. Then, a prominent local ally of President Trump on immigration loses her seat in this week's election.
Other Republican incumbents also lost their seat in this election.
Plus, an investigation hits leadership at a state lab that monitors our food and water.
So this came from a public records request. We had heard about problems at the lab.
And the longtime leader on the Ute Mountain Ute reservation leaves office.
Today, we share these lands that we once roamed freely with many Coloradans and with many visitors and tourists.
It's Friday, November 7th. Here's the news in Colorado today. Flights are being canceled from Denver today because of a mandate from the Trump administration during the prolonged federal government shutdown. As of yesterday evening, about 30 flights have been canceled, a fraction of the 1,600 flights that depart the airport on an average day. The FAA is mandating a reduction in traffic at Denver and dozens of other airports. And as word got out yesterday, people flying from DIA, like Julie O'Day, started to notice.
I'm a little bit worried about the air traffic control issue. I'm not sure. I feel comfortable thinking there's subs or not enough people there.
Still, lines were moving fluidly on Thursday. Traveler Laura Bowling had more questions than answers about the FAA's moves.
I have no idea at this point how that's going to affect my scheduled flights.
This situation is really fluid, so we're telling you what we have been able to gather at this point, and we'll bring you more information in the coming days as we have it. The point of reducing the number of flights, according to the FAA, is to try to keep the airspace safer while air traffic controllers and TSA agents are forced to work without pay. The potential good news, if you're flying, is that Denver is a United hub, and the airline says it does not intend to cut hub-to-hub service. It also says international flights should go out as planned. And DIA is actually asking for permission to use its own money to pay air traffic controllers. Meanwhile, TSA union representative Angela Grana in Durango said her members feel threatened not to use their sick leave or vacation time, but the financial and emotional stress is building.
I don't know how they can continue to expect us to keep our composure and to keep our stress controlled and to make sure we don't make a mistake, because we cannot make a mistake.
Ultimately, if you're flying, the advice is to check with your airline. As to whether these airport issues could bring the shutdown to a quicker end, CPR's Ryan Warner asked Democratic Representative Jason Crow about that yesterday.
Would holiday travel disruptions move Democrats away from their push to address health insurance costs before reopening government?
Ryan, I'm not going to bargain with people's health insurance and their ability to actually survive and provide health care for their children.
Crow put the onus back on Republicans.
They made the decision to not come to us to work towards a bipartisan solution, and they have to now make the decision to open the doors back up, start negotiation, and work with us in good faith.
Meanwhile, DIA has started a food pantry to help employees who are working without pay. They're seeking public donations. You can find more information at the link in the show notes or at denverite.com. Aurora's City Council just got a major shakeup. The leadership body in Colorado's third largest city just swung from being solidly Republican to solidly Democratic. What happened? Denverite's Kyle Harris has been watching the vote tallies come in from Tuesday's election. One of the biggest races there wasn't called until Wednesday, and the result was surprising. Kyle, that was the race for Aurora's at-large city council seats, a firebrand Republican incumbent who had aligned herself with Trump lost.
Yeah, that's right. So we're talking about Danielle Jurinski. She's a bar owner in Aurora. She's also an Air Force veteran. She won one of Aurora's at-large city council seats back in 2021 with a tough-on-crime, pro-business message. If you don't live in Aurora and her name sounds familiar, there's a reason why. She got a lot of attention for her role in the Tren de Aragua apartment takeover debate last year. She accused some Venezuelan migrants of being part of a transnational gang that she claimed had taken over the city.
I think with regard to the apartment complex, none of us are buying the story that this is code enforcement violations and that this doesn't have to do with gang activity. There is a gang problem in areas of our city are being taken over. This is what we believe.
It was a perspective that conservative media and President Trump seized on during his 2024 presidential campaign. And Jurinski stood on stage with him in Aurora last fall when he said that he would call his mass deportation effort
Operation Aurora.
I do remember Jurinski made appearances on national TV. She was accused of exaggerating the Tren de Aragua situation in Aurora and putting the city in a bad light. Is her loss a repudiation of that specifically, or is it about Trump policies more broadly?
Look, I'm not going to conjecture what's going on inside the head of any individual voter, but other Republican incumbents also lost their seat in this election in Aurora. Jurinski was the most well-known outside of the city, and she did other stuff to grab the spotlight. Like, she challenged an activist who's been organizing protests over police shootings to have a charity boxing match. When we think about how other races across the country went on Tuesday, though, there seems to have been a backlash against President Trump's first 10 months in office. Jurinski, by aligning herself and her message so closely to Trump, may have been part of that voter approach. But I also think that it's telling that all the conservative candidates in Aurora lost their races despite outspending progressive candidates by more than $500,000. And voter turnout, which was nearing 50%, is high. That's basically unheard of in off-year elections in Aurora.
What is clear, then, is that Aurora voters wanted change.
Exactly. In the city council, Aurora went from having 7 conservatives and 3 progressives to 6 progressives and 4 conservatives. School board races also tipped Democratic. And now the city's leader, Republican Mayor Mike Kaufman, is going to have to try to accomplish his agenda with a city council that's majority Democrat.
For someone who lives in Aurora, what are these newly elected progressive council members promising?
Well, basically, they are promising the opposite of what Jurinski has railed against for the last few years. So let's focus on the 2 new at-large council members, Allie Jackson and Rob Andrews. Jackson, she's the daughter of an immigrant who said that she wants to ensure the city is supporting its immigrant families and keeping them safe. Andrews, he grew up in Colorado and campaigned on housing affordability, in particular developing workforce housing for low and middle-income workers like teachers and healthcare professionals. And you know, Aurora is the most diverse city in Colorado. These candidates bet that messages about compassion and inclusion would win out to criminalization and division. And it turns out, in this case, they were right.
Denverite's Kyle Harris. Thanks, Kyle.
Happy to be here.
A state lab that works to help keep your food and water safe has had some problems that are drawing a lot of scrutiny. And now, Colorado's state lab director is on leave during an investigation. CPR's Ben Marcus is here with more on this story. Ben, can you first explain what is this lab? What does it do?
It does all kinds of things. It monitors water quality, like checking for lead in water at elementary schools and child care centers. There's a newborn testing program, so newborns are tested. Do they have diseases or certain conditions? Test for things like mercury in fish. So a lot of ways that human health can be impacted by certain things, food and water.
Those sound like really important things. Before we get into details about the investigation, can we just jump to the big question that many Coloradans may have, which is, should we be concerned about our safety?
So it appears that one of the main issues here is a pattern of data manipulation. Now, CDPHE, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, they say that there's no health risk, that they've done a review, and they say that it's only a certain small subset of tests that were problematic. And in retesting those, they didn't find that health standards were compromised.
Retesting. Ben, you broke the story about the lab director being put on leave. How did you find out about that?
So this came from a public records request. We had heard about problems at the lab, so we asked the public health department for the lab director's emails. The last email in that batch that was sent to us was a letter placing Emily Travanti, the lab's director, on paid leave because of an investigation tied to the Environmental Protection Agency.
So the feds then are involved.
Yeah, so starting in spring of last year, EPA began stripping the Colorado State Lab of certifications to run these tests. One of the certifications was to conduct a test that confirms if drinking water meets federal standards. Later, EPA began revoking or let lapse other certifications, like the one that monitors lead in water at elementary schools, for instance. Early on, CDPHE informed EPA that there was an, quote, active internal investigation into a chemist's data manipulation, unquote. The state said that manipulation had been happening since at least 2020.
What more do we know about that at this point?
So there has been some reporting about this. Earlier in the year, 9 News reported that CDPHE had revealed to lawmakers that 2 chemists had manipulated data. We don't know exactly the manipulation. EPA has cited a number of concerns, though. One is about conflicts of interest. So they were concerned with somebody who had data quality issues running the retests and examining old tests to figure out what was wrong. They called that a conflict of interest. EPA also said that they were concerned with staff turnover. EPA has to know from the state when supervisors or managers leave a lab, and EPA says that the state did not inform them of that.
Sounds like there's been a number of problems. Have you been able to talk with anyone at the state health department or the EPA? What do they have to say about all of this?
So we have struggled to get timely answers from CDPHE. They first ignored a request for an interview. When I asked for questions and gave them a deadline, they said that they couldn't meet that deadline to provide answers to those questions. After the story published, they did provide some context to things. They said they've contracted with a third-party tester to do the retesting. They've cooperated with EPA during their investigation and responded to things like the conflict of interest and changed the way that they do their data review. EPA did not respond to our request. When I emailed the media contact, it bounced back as undeliverable because of the government shutdown.
And once again, the state did say that these issues have not led to increased health and safety risks. CPR's Ben Marcus, thanks for your reporting.
Thank you.
Before you go, we want to tell you about a changing of the guard happening today.
I can think of very few leaders that have been as successful and insightful and as diligent as Chairman Hart.
Manuel Hart is stepping down as the longtime chairman of the Ute Mountain Ute tribe, whose reservation is in the Four Corners area and is home to about 2,000 people. You just heard John Hickenlooper honoring him on the floor of the U.S. Senate this week.
He struck that delicate balance between preserving and investing in Ute culture and securing more resources by navigating intergovernmental relationships to make sure to deliver to the needs of his community.
To do that, to honor the past and work for the tribe's future, Hart helped establish a new charter school on the reservation, which he refers to as KCA. It teaches both Ute history, language, and culture, and a science, technology, engineering, math, and arts curriculum.
The boarding school era really took away who we were as Native people, our languages, the assimilation, and we wanted to bring it back to this KCA to bring back what is very important to us.
He made these remarks in his final address to Colorado's legislature earlier this year.
These Rocky Mountains were once the lands of the Ute people. We were the original stewards of all these mountains. Today, we share these mountains with many Coloradans and with many visitors and tourists that come to look at these majestic mountains.
Manuel Hart has been in tribal government for 27 years. The new chairman, Selwyn Whiteskunk, takes over today as the tribe is trying to get a fair stake in negotiations over the future of the Colorado River and is still trying to get better access to water it was promised decades ago. The tribe is also dealing with a shortage of housing on the reservation and a need for more economic development. Reporting for today's show also came from CPR's Caitlin Kim and Molly Cruz and Denverites' Kiara Damari. To keep up with what's happening in your state, be sure to follow Colorado Today in your podcast app. I'm Bazi Kanani. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can get a free honeysuckle white turkey when you spend $100 or more in a single transaction through November 27th. Clip the offer in the Safeway app and make your holiday feast delicious.